Welcome to Startup Confidential, what industry insiders will never tell you that you need to know if you're building a consumer brand. With your host, best-selling author of Ramping Your Brand, Dr. James Richardson. Let's do this.
One surefire way to reposition a stalled out or even a decelerating emerging brand is to simply find a much, much larger audience and market heavily towards them using modern, digital, skewed techniques in 2026. Just add more similar people. That's the idea. Now, the key word here is similar. It's where, geeky founders keep tripping themselves up year after year, stuck in an echo chamber, talking to themselves in their geekdom. If quote unquote similar means identical in every way to the early fans of the business, including the most narrow possible behavioral profile, think female ultramarathoners. A brand risks burying itself forever into a nano niche. The basis of this audience niche is actually a tiny pool of behavior caused by a tiny pool of geeks who engage in it and somehow reached by your distribution footprint. Geeky behavior performed by geeky audience equals a small behavioral pool. It won't grow your business past 100 mil. It probably won't grow it past 50, no matter what you sell. In my book, I talk about niche lifestyle worlds, ultramarathoners, that can help build early cash flow and growth and validate that you have a superb product. Now, this is still gold. These kinds of niches are still absolute gold for undercapitalized founders who are selling in their respective categories ostensibly weird, but actually just modern attributes. So that model that I talk about in the book, it can carry you to 1% to 2% of household penetration pretty reliably. And honestly, it can get some brands, and actually the ones that execute well, to $50 to $100 million. But this approach, I don't talk about this in the book, it's not going to carry you past 100 million reliably, unless your price point is just cuckoo beauty product high. What you eventually need is to use your early niche audience to discover an outcome-based bridge to a much, much broader audience. And that broader outcome that you uncover, that your early fans also liked, unlocks a much, much broader audience. An audience that will take you to 10 to 20% of the US. The less sophisticated or bizarre your offering, the more critical it is that you escape the navel-gazing marketing echo chamber that you now are probably in. Ladies and gentlemen, you have to go mainstream earlier than my book implies. This process is called audience expansion, or if you're a pessimist, dilution. And it works fairly well if you have a serious creative storytelling mojo accessible to your team. The key here is to find the most broadly appealing consumer outcome to redefine with your otherwise very niche product design. This is the real process of making something cool as opposed to weird. What happens when communications stay too narrow is that the brand appears to run out of consumers interested in the intersection of your category, your product, plus the target outcome you initially focused on. Here's the thing. This limited reach is actually an illusion. It's an unforced marketing error as you scale successfully. In most cases, there is a way out. The outcome any founder seeks in order to scale deep into the 9 figures and beyond in consumer products is actually a larger pool of recurring behaviors where people will use your products, larger than the pool of behavior that got the brand going in the lifestyle niche approach that I write about. So it's actually behavior that you're targeting, not people, at the end of the day, because it's the behavior that gets things consumed. But the behavior is the consuming. And this was always the case. categories used daily make expanding the behavior pool really easy. Just add more households. I mean, expanding the audience for your brand comes very easily for specific kinds of innovation like dude wipes, which are not actually sophisticated. They're not asking a lot of anybody. And they weren't really started by geeks or people who are geeking in their category through innovation. And that's because the outcome that drove initial bro interest in dude wipes among listeners to Barstool Sports, which was their almost exclusive marketing channel for a long time, it's the exact same everyday desire for a clean butt that all humans really do have. Humans who use toilet paper, that is. So expanding the audience is just not that complicated. Right? It's not intellectually complicated at all. But what if your category is not used daily like butt wipes or toilet paper? You can still use marketing to broaden the audience and locate a broader outcome that appeals to this much larger audience who generates a larger pool of behavior. But you have to think harder about an outcome that ties to a more frequent occasion, even if this is seasonal. Many niche brands in CPG, however, learn to speak to geeks about geeky outcomes. This is how the culture of the organization grows, and founders lose sight of the broad reach outcomes that their niche innovation was already selling to, because both their geek audience and the geek founders are just geeking out about attributes, cool and sexy attributes, and they're potentially also obsessed with nanoscopic outcomes that nobody really cares about in a broad sense. Now, I make fun of this problem repeatedly in my book for a reason, and yet founders I know still refuse to dilute their brand, quote unquote. If you cannot locate the Walmart mainstream outcome that your innovation is redefining for a modern audience, then you have an imagination problem in most cases. Assuming your product does not have off-putting or weird attributes. You can basically reposition virtually anything for a very dull outcome like daily treat or convenience or basic nutrition. These are not exciting outcomes. They're huge. But you also have to imagine a broader audience than the one you've been focused on. So I have a client, for example, shifting from purity to treat as their strategic outcome. That's a big move. And it's possible, folks. Trust me, it works. Here's a classic case study of this that no one can deny. Gatorade. All right, it's old. I know, but it works. And it's an example of an innovative product created by geeks. The Florida Gators athletic team. And this geeky product full of electrolytes that no one thought they needed had to broaden its assumed behavior mix because it wasn't going to grow household penetration if it would just continue to market itself as a professional athletic supplement. It's not going to go anywhere. So Gatorade did this by expanding beyond professional sports hydration and the professional audience to everyday sports hydration amongst the athletic masses, right? And this was perfectly timed for Generation X, which is the first generation of boys and girls to get involved in kids' sports, high school athletics, yada, yada, yada. So we grew up aspiring to become, fantasizing even, becoming the professional athlete who was on our television consuming Gatorade, right? So where does everyday sports hydration play in terms of behavior? Well, it's kids' sports games. Tens of thousands a week all over the country. Playing pickup basketball in your backyard. Millions of people are doing that during the summer. And so the behavior pool suddenly gets massive. It's no longer just it's not just a tribe of professional athletes. You see how the audience has just exploded by diluting the outcome that we're focused on. The super famous Be Like Mike television campaign in the early 90s used Michael Jordan as the key athletic sponsor for Gatorade. And it put him with ordinary people playing basketball with Michael Jordan in ordinary places. And it's the ordinary places where they want you to use the Gatorade, right? That's the whole point of the commercial. Drink Gatorade and be as good as Michael. Be so good you can compete with Michael Jordan in the pickup basketball game in the hood. That was the message in the ads. And it was funny, and it was very memorable. Gatorade broadened our imagination of the frequency of behavior where Gatorade was relevant, and it therefore broadened the behavior pool that it was competing in. It started competing directly with water. Oh, bold, since water is free for most of us back then. It made Gatorade more generalizable and applicable to tens of millions of people, but not to everybody, just to many millions more. And Gatorade continues to use sports nutrition attributes, electrolytes, to pull off this marketing feat with Gen X, because that's the secret sauce, that's the magic that makes the outcome claim believable. And it worked. And Gatorade learned to talk to soccer moms through marketing, not just to college athletes, without abandoning its athletic roots, at least for most of its history. And so the athletic sponsors and the athlete sponsors that continue to endorse the brand continue to feed the magic, even though the outcome is actually any kind of hydration, including a dude with his shirt off in the back of his yard on a hot Texas summer afternoon, right? By changing the audience through changing the behavior that you're targeting, this allows you to create marketing communications and stories that are going to unlock massive volumes for a brand that at the time was regarded as a bizarre niche idea, electrolyte sports drinks. But some of you are too young to know how people made fun of Gatorade in the 80s. So find the outcome that connects to your brand with very frequent occasions tied to it. That's your challenge that most of you need to take on. And this is going to help your marketing team focus storytelling on behavior that resonates unconsciously with millions and millions of viewers and accelerates your business past a lifestyle niche or the stereotypical whole foods, natural organic niche that got your business to initial viable scale. And that's all I've got, folks. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe below here on YouTube or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening. Remember, Dr. Richardson has loads of resources for founders at premiumgrowthsolutions.com.